On today's show, we welcome Christina Wise, co-producer and writer of Wait for Your Laugh, a brilliant documentary about the one and only Rose Marie, a legend, a character, a gem of a performer who boasts the longest career in showbiz history. Wait for Your Laugh was a smash when it debuted at the Mill Valley Film Festival recently, and the doc opens in select cities this month. Take a peek.
Believe me when I tell you, she's a history of show business.
Every phase of entertainment for literally 87 years.
Paved her own way.
She was no pushover, that's for sure.
Was she stubborn? Was she sweet all the time? Was she a pain in the ass? She was all of those things.
Christina, welcome to the program. It's great to have you on today. Thank you for being here and being a guest.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. This documentary about Rose Marie is absolutely riveting. And folks, look at the bottom of your screen. Go to rosemariemovie.com to learn more about it and to find out where it might be playing toward you, in your region or whatnot. So congratulations on that. And I wanted to have you on the show because it is so, I love filmmaking and I love documentaries. And what I love even more are individuals who really kind of go even deeper and bring up something that we may not have known. So can you tell me a little bit about your journey into how this came into your world? Because Rose Marie is she has the longest active career in entertainment. You seem very young, and Rose Marie is over 90, correct? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you came upon this and why it was important for you to bring it to light as the writer and producer.
So a couple years ago, when Jason was working at Yahoo and I was working at TV Guide. And my days at TV Guide, I did a lot of celebrity specials and I did a lot of specials on film, specials on television. And then if anybody would pass, I would do the obit. So I had a lot of experience telling people's life stories after it ended. Jason was working at Yahoo and he was doing these kind of where they now stories. And we met Rosemary's publicist. And he was like, who do you think has the best story in Hollywood? He's like, you have to talk to Rosemary. So we got her book and I read her story. And for me, the opportunity to tell this woman's story who's done so much. And for me as a working woman and a mom, I was so impressed by all that she was able to accomplish and accomplish that 50 years before me. And then the chance to be able to tell somebody's story, sit them down, ask those questions, and really kind of take a look back at everything while they're still here was great for me. So,
oh my gosh, I bet. So obviously you knew about Rose Marie before. You wrote for TV Guide, so you're very TV savvy. So you knew of Rose Marie, right?
Yeah, I mean, I knew the Dick Van Dyke Show. I knew her. Knew Hollywood Squares. I didn't know everything else until I read her book and really started researching her. And her stories in the mob and her child star stories, they're so interesting. And for me, that was kind of the bigger draw than the Dick Van Dyke stuff. And I think it's great that she did this, incredibly popular show and she was wonderful on it. She's hilarious, but she also did so much and she was the first of so many things. And I just felt that the world kind of needed to hear her story. And, so somebody like me or another generation who might forget the, radio and vaudeville and all of that, what that was like. And, she's 94. Not a lot of people are going to tell these stories or exist in those days to say this is what it was like performing on vaudeville or having a radio show and or opening nightclubs and, playing in all these different nightclubs and how it was such a big culture in the 40s and the 50s. But it wasn't recorded. People don't look back and there wasn't these huge concert venues. You went to nightclubs to see people.
Yeah, exactly. And what I found so interesting about it, there's so much I didn't know. I was an avid fan of the Dick Van Dyke Show and I saw it in reruns so many years. And I knew Rose Marie had a career before that because from my understanding, she was in her 40s when she starred in the Dick Van Dyke Show. But what I didn't know was that she was this wonderful recording artist, this child star at the age of 5 or 6, long before Shirley Temple came onto the scene. So, what what were some things that really surprised you, and what do you think some things might surprise other people when they view this? Because I was just blown away. I'm like, wow. And then her father's involved in, with the mob a little bit. It's like what?
The mob connections, I think, is definitely like a sexy element that we loved. That we were like, this is so cool that this woman, she knew these guys. She worked for them. And it kind of shows when she played this character, Sally, and she's up against all these guys and she's in a room with guys. Well, she grew up around the mob. I mean, this is, it just bred her to be able to play this role so well. And, she's so used to being around somebody and saying, hey, like Bugsy Siegel, there's money missing out of my paycheck. And so, hey,
Bugsy, there's money missing. I mean, whoa. Yeah.
But she worked for all these guys. She had friendships with them. And I think that was probably something that was surprising to me and to really, to know that she interacted with all these guys. And she has so many stories we couldn't put into the film.
Really? I bet.
Just different mob stories. And, you're working for there's different people have different territories. So sometimes she'd play one nightclub by this mob person that didn't like this other person that she was friends with. And, there would be arguments back and forth. And she'd notice like the bullet holes in the back of the, behind the stage and everything. So
what a trip. What a trip. Wow.
Once in a while she would mention some of the tough guys she knew back then.
You're working for the mob, the so-called mob.
They treated her like a daughter.
She opened the Flamingo for Bugsy Siegel.
She was crazy in love with him, and he was crazy in love with her. And there was a lot of problems.
Wow. So after you did, when did you actually meet her, and how long did it take for you guys to create this? And what was that like for you, meeting her?
So we first met her, I think it was March of 2014. And, she was a little weary at first. We had to meet her daughter. And then we went over and we met her. And she wasn't sure if she wanted, we're young people. She didn't know, she could trust us and what our plan was with this. She lives really close to us. So, we kind of met her a couple times, went to her house, went to visit with her. We did the interviews. Most of the core interviews of the film were taking place in 2014. So it took us a little while we wanted to make sure we got everybody on camera. Dick, Carl, everybody, just in case we lost anybody. And then we went to get funding and had to do a bunch of research, and Rosemary kept everything. That was the other incredible thing. So when we went to meet with her, she's like, oh, you got to look at this scrapbook. And for a documentarian, this is your dream. And so scrapbook of every year of their life for like 90 years. It's like, oh my gosh. So, I mean, we really truly felt like historians a lot of last year just going through every single page. And she'd tell us the story on camera. And even we would do some audio interviews with her just to kind of make sure the details were right. And she remembers everything perfectly. So then I'd be going through and there would be an invite or something for one of her shows in the 40s. Or there'd be a telegram from her husband when they first started dating, and she remembers it word for word. It was so incredible just going through everything. So we did most of our production last year, and then we shot a lot of reenactments at the beginning of this year.
Marvelous. That's another thing, too, that surprised me, her wonderful love story with her husband. Can you talk a little bit about that and your thoughts about that when you uncovered that and asked her questions about that?
So that was probably what drew me most to it. I mean, the career was incredible, but I loved this love story. And I think it's great because she's known as sort of a tough woman, but she was so girly with Bobby. And they met, they had to elope, and they have this just really genuine, special love story. He was her only husband. She never remarried after he passed. And I think that's really special. It's not something you see in a lot of Hollywood celebrity stories. And it really gave another side to her that the world, I don't think, knew. I think they knew her as kind of this, and Sally was always looking for a boyfriend on the Dick Van Dyke Show. In reality, she had this wonderful, true love of her life.
My gosh. That's another thing, too, being on the Dick Van Dyke Show, when she was on the Dick Van Dyke Show, she was really she was the only woman among all these men, which I found that was so rare at that time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
It's not, she played kind of, it's funny because those roles aren't common today. You know, I mean, there's a lot more women in writers' rooms in general, but, you know, it's become more common, but that was such a groundbreaking role.
gosh, it sure was, wasn't it?
You know, and I don't think she realized it was anything like, you know, she wasn't setting out to like make a statement or anything. It was a job, you know, and she was playing the role, you know, but she did. She set a great example.
Amazing, amazing. So, can you talk a little bit about your experiences of sitting down with Dick Van Dyke or Carl Reiner and what that was like? Legends, also.
Yes, no, they were incredible, and they were so sweet and so welcoming. You know, it's when you're setting up, and you know, Dick, he could have been off on the side. You know, he's sitting there and he's talking to us, he's asking questions, and he was just so personable. Same with Carl; they're so nice, they're so sweet. So it was just an honor to be in a room and have them welcome us so well, and to tell Rosie's story. You know, it's been 50 years since they worked together, but they still are so fond of each other.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful. We're going to get back to Rosemarie in a second. I want to talk a little bit about you and your trajectory and your evolution. So tell me about when you were a child and growing up. Did you aspire to be a writer? Did you want to be a writer? Was that something that was creatively pulling you, or how'd that come into be?
You know, funny enough, so I went to broadcast journalism school. So I wanted to be a writer, but I thought I wanted to be in front of the camera breaking news. And then I started doing that and I didn't like it.
That's tough. So breaking news is tough, right? It's, yeah.
You're kind of, you would have to be a news anchor, a reporter, you have to change markets a lot. So I kind of found that I really liked the behind the scenes. I really like putting something together, and I like writing it. I think the writing took me a couple years to be more comfortable in writing for film and for television. And then on the side, I'm also writing YA novels. So it's really been in the last 5 years that I've really kind of felt comfortable as a writer, and making documentaries. I really like taking people's stories, and when you have to get questions out on camera and then create the story just from what they say, and it's from their perspective, it's an odd kind of way to write. With this one, we did a lot of BO because we wanted the audience to understand the world that Rosemarie lived in and what radio was, what television was, and there was kind of just some things we needed to fill in. And so when we had Peter Marshall do the voiceover, that was fun because I could write to a voice, and knowing she was going to read those lines.
It's another legend too, Peter Marshall. I mean, people, they know Peter, Mr. Marshall from Hollywood Squares, but he's also done so much stage work and so many other things too, right? Yeah. Well, so growing up, who inspired you? As you were growing up as a child and as a teenager, who inspired you to maybe get into the creative arts more? I love asking people that who are creative because it's always interesting to find out what they say.
But yeah. You know, I was really into sitcoms and kind of like the Friday night television. I remember as a kid, like Nickelodeon had their Friday night lineup, and
yes,
Are You Afraid of the Dark and those kinds of things. And Friends was huge when I was in high school, and just watching these situational comedies. And it's funny because I don't think I would ever work on one or write one, but I lived in a very TV culture. And just watching all of that, it was such a neat thing to see people create something, and there was such a popularity and appointment viewing, and I don't know if there was one person or one show that really pushed me into it. It was just more this sitting down to watch something and being very, you couldn't, you had to watch Thursday night TV, Friends, or, what would you talk about at school the next day?
Yeah, that was it. The Thursday night lineup, right? In the 90s, the must-see TV. They're trying to bring back, yeah.
Culture, but for me, that was kind of an influence in that people created these stories that people, you felt like those people were real, I kind of wanted to be a part of that somehow, some way.
That's great. It's great. And so, tell us about your novels. This is great.
So I'm trying to get an agent right now. I just did a competition. It's called Pitch Wars. So I've been working with a mentor. We had 2 months to revise our novel. Finished yesterday. So it goes
Congrats.
thank you. It goes up to an agent round. We'll see what happens with all of that. But it's been a really fun. I like writing for young people. I think I've got 2 girls of my own, and it's just a fun outlet for me. Along with our documentaries, we don't do very serious documentaries, but it's nice to have like a really big creative outlet for young people as opposed to making like movies about wine,
Right.
which is other films are about.
Right. How old are your girls?
1 and 4.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
Actually pregnant through a lot of the making of Rosemary. And part of why our production was delayed a little was because I went into early labor with my second daughter. But it was funny because Rosemary, her birthday is August 15th.
She's a Leo.
Leo. And I was due September 15th. And, we go visit her often just to socialize. And, she's in her 90s. She likes having people come by.
Yeah.
So I'm being pregnant, coming by, and she's like, nope, that's an August baby. You're going to have an August baby. And I was like, no, it's September. It's like middle September. And then I went into early labor. They were able to stop my labor. It started on August 10th. They stopped it. And I was able to keep her in until August 23rd. But I was like, Rosemary knew. She knew.
She knew. So, what do you feel? Obviously, there's so many inspiring things in the documentary about Rosemary. I mean, her personality, her longevity, her ability to even adapt with changes and just remain true to herself. Can you talk a little bit about what you feel other people might be inspired by when they watch Rosemary and just Rosemary herself?
I think she's such a hard worker, and she really doesn't stop, and she never really let it get to her head. Even though she had been a child actress and she'd always kind of been in the spotlight, it never really got to her head. And she just worked hard, and she'd always show up on time. She was a dedicated worker. It was funny when we were making the film, we'd go to a place to rent cameras or to get film, and somebody would be like, oh, I was on set with her. She was always sweet. She always brought us her homemade cookies. She's a great cook. And she loved sharing her pasta sauce. Like, she was sweet to everybody on set. And she stands up for herself. And I think in a time where she was a working mom who stood up for herself before that was like really a thing. But that's her personality. That's just who she was.
Right. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Because I think so many people don't really, like we talked about earlier, really realize the whole expanse of her entire career. She was a singer, she was a comedian, she was an actress, and she's pretty much explored every 20th century, entertainment medium. What did you learn from her along the way, and just observing her or in watching her share, whether it be about motherhood or relationships or just kind of being in an entertainment world? Because to be in a world of entertainment, that takes a lot of grit, no matter what field, especially when you're an actor and you're doing filmmaking as well. But what are some things you may have learned from her along the process of going through all this?
It's interesting because when I'd ask her questions, like, I'd be like, gosh, wasn't this so hard? Was it difficult when you had to be away from nuclear? Like, how did you balance your work and her response was always like, I just did it. You just do it. And, she's 90, so she's looking back on things. And so something that might have felt like a really big deal for me, like at a time, like, okay, I've got to be away for a week, or I've got to do this, or I'm not balancing everything right. She just looked at me and go, you just do it. You just do it. You get through it. And it's such a small sliver of life. You're not going to remember the stress that you're feeling right now as you're trying to get through it. Just do it. And then you'll look back on it and you'll be like, oh, I did this and I did this and I did that. And I was able to, raise my children and do all these things. She's like, if you dwell too much on the micro, it's going to be too hard.
Oh my gosh, that's so true, right? When you have to kind of really step back and take a look at the bigger picture of not just your life, but like the bigger picture of where you fit into other people's, lives too, and the whole kind of tapestry of whatever the work is you're doing too. I find that fascinating. What's some of the challenges that you faced creating this documentary?
I mean, working with 90-year-old, we would love for her to be out promoting the movie right now. I wish we would have done it, when she was a little younger. Of course, we didn't find her until she was in her 90s. But I mean, she made it really easy because she saved so much and she remembers so much. So, it was actually kind of a filmmaker's dream because, we didn't have to go, oh, well, she got this date wrong or this person really wasn't there. They were all there. I think it was just combing through everything and then putting it all together and choosing what stories of her life to put in and what stories not, because we did have to cut a lot out. I mean, we could have made a 3-hour documentary.
What'd you cut out?
Oh, well, one of the big ones, so she managed Tim Conway. She actually discovered Tim Conway in Cleveland.
Yeah, I actually knew that, but I don't think nobody really probably knows that. Yeah.
People don't realize it, and then she brought him out to LA. We cut a lot of the mob stories out. They're great. They just don't go into like the bigger picture of her life. Because we really wanted everything kind of had to have a good story arc, which is part of what I have to do is like, you can go off on a lot of tangents. But they'll make great special features.
Nice. Is it interesting to have looked back at show business then while you're in show business now? I find that interesting because to me sometimes when, if I do stories or if I interview people who are above 85, there's a certain mystique and I don't know, class or something, or maybe I don't think it's an illusion, but there was something there that seems to be not so much there these days. You know what I mean? So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. And then I have another question about that too, but yeah.
Yeah, it definitely, when she first started telling us her stories and things, I would ask myself, it sounds like it was easier then. But I don't think it was. I just think compared to now, it was easier, but that's what it was. So it probably still felt hard for her. But there was a respect level on set and the way that people treated each other and talked to each other. She talks about it all the time, comedy-wise. There was just class in the comedy back then. You didn't rely on swear words. And I think a lot of, you can kind of keep your life private at that time. It's different today. When you do something, your whole life is out there. Not for everybody, but for a lot of people and a lot of actors.
It's so true, right? Yeah.
So much more. Like if you want to be an actress in a film, you have to like whoever you're dating or married or your children, you could just be taking your children to the grocery store and get photographed. So I think it was different back then that you could kind of have much more of a private life. And for her, she looked at it as jobs. It wasn't like I'm trying to become a star. I'm booking a job. You book it, you come in, you do your work, and you leave,
Right. See, that's what's so refreshing, too, because when you're not really craving that or looking for that, and you're just pretty authentic and showing up, inevitably, like, it's going to come back and be a good boomerang. It's going to, it's going to fuel something for you, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I find that so interesting. It's so fascinating. Did she even in conversations with you and maybe things that did not end up in the documentary, did she comment on the entertainment business today and her thoughts on it?
She did. I think she misses the heyday.
Yeah.
Yeah, she definitely misses. She said it in the film. She wishes she could go out and show them how to do it. She thinks that they're too crass. They're too, she wishes she could do her act, her comedy, her singing, and just, how to do it with class. So,
right.
But Carl, Dick, they all kind of feel that way, I feel like, just because they also did it so well, Carl,
they seem they were such naturals at it,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I think that would be great if Rosemarie kind of, rolled up her sleeves and went out there and just, all right, this is how it's done. Just take a look. And
she's still hilarious. I mean, she's still so funny. Even just like any of her comebacks or comments or, she's just got her wit with her.
Yeah, that's what's so great, and her mind is so like, I mean, it's so brilliant. I mean, and she remembers so much from what we had seen in the documentary. So, which is great. It's just very sharp. Like she was describing certain details to the finest detail of how she met this one person, or even Bobby when they were becoming more romantic, and how that was and how they met. I find that so amazing and so inspiring, yeah. So what do you think is one of the secrets to living a really great life? I like to inspire people when they kind of tune into this thing and hear people who are doing their dream work and whatnot. Yeah. What do you think?
I think having some motivation. I mean, I think Rosemary, always wanting to work and always having a passion, kept her going. I find it with me, my work is part of me. It's part of what I do. If I love being a mother and I love being a wife and all these things, but I love my work. And I think that will kind of keep me balanced, keep me going. So having something you're passionate about, and don't sweat the small stuff.
That's it. Don't sweat the small stuff. There we go. We're back to that. Yeah. Take a step back, right? What do you love most about being a mother?
I think just being silly with my kids. I mean, they're so sweet when they come up and hug, Mommy, I love you, and putting them to bed each night and everything.
Oh, that's great. What do you love most?
4-year-old's actually in the movie.
That's right.
Plays baby Rosemary.
Yeah.
So, this is a full family affair. I don't think she really knew what she was doing, but
it's great. You dressed her up, and it was great, right?
Yeah.
What do you love most about being a filmmaker?
I like telling people stories, and I think getting into different aspects of certain things. Our first 2 films were about wine, and we kind of dug ourselves deep into that world, and we're part of that world, and then we kind of slowed back, and now we're into this kind of old Hollywood world, which is kind of cool. I mean, I've got to meet and know so many actors that are 90, and I'm working with them, kind of on a daily basis, which is so strange to me because I never would have thought, this is the generation of Hollywood I'm going to be involved in. And then, we'll back up, and our next film's on sea urchin divers. So we're getting kind of into the world of fishermen in California, and it's really neat to full and see these different aspects, and it's fun.
Wow. All right. So sea urchins. What don't we know about them that we should?
So the film's called Delicacy, and people have to dive down and kind of hand farm the sea urchins. There's only a certain amount of licenses in the state of California. It's very well controlled, and they're just really interesting people. And sea urchin has taken kind of a big foodie boom, and so for a while it didn't, it was not that big of an industry, and now it's a huge industry. But these people have still been doing it for 30 years. They face a lot of threats, sharks being one of them. So they persevere through it all, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I would say sharks. That's a big threat, right? Speaking of sharks, what advice or what information would you pass along to those who want to get into the business of filmmaking, whether it be documentary filmmaking or pursuing that dream of being in film in some way, having their creative work show up in that way, especially behind the scenes?
I think working hard. I think you want to, whoever you work with, you want to keep professional, and you want to, people move around a lot in this business, and you always kind of want to impress somebody. So having like a air of professionality always wherever you work. Even if you hate the job, be nice to the people, because you never know who you'll run into again. I can say that on this film, when I was working at TV Guide, I worked there for 8 years. So towards the end, the person who was VP, his partner was working over at Warner Brothers in the publicity department. And I would do specials on Harry Potter. And so I was always trying to impress, obviously, my boss, and then his partner, who was over at Warner Brothers. And we've actually now, it's been 5 years, and we just hired his partner to work on our film. So I was just
Nice.
like a little, AP, and then I got moved up and this producer, and I'm just trying to make these specials, and now he gets to work on my film, so you never know how people are going to grow and move and change in this industry. And so you kind of want to always be nice and be professional, because things can always change, and the people you're working for can work for you one day.
Right. It's a full circle, right? I like to do this once in a while. I'm just going to toss out a few words and just tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Yeah, just a little bit like therapy. What the heck? We go a little deep sometimes on this show. Well, okay. Deep enough, I guess. All right. So when I say the word Hollywood, what comes to mind?
Stars and Hollywood Boulevard.
Nice. Okay. Filmmaking.
Here's film, actual film, like Kodak reels of film.
Like actual Kodak. Awesome. Great.
Yes. We actually shot a lot of our documentary on film.
That's right.
Rosemary had saved so many reels that we wanted to match what she did. So film has become a big part of our world again. Nice.
Motherhood.
Diapers.
I love that. Rosemary.
I think a strong woman. Just, her kind of quick wit, and always has a comment.
Nice. And one last question for you. What's some of the best advice you've been given about life?
I feel like I've said this before, but just to kind of work hard and to keep going. Just work hard. Like, your work will pay off. If you don't put the work in, you're not going to get the outcome. So. Right.
We have to take the action that's required to do that work, whatever we're being called to do. Right. Yeah. Because a lot of us, we have so many ideas, but until we take the action to, even if it's a little one, right? Yeah. But then that leads to something else, that leads to something else, that leads to something else, which is great. All right, one last question, actually, one more. What's the most interesting thing you've been learning about yourself lately?
What have I been learning about myself lately? I have been working like 12 to 15 hours a day. I work from home, which is great. But I didn't realize how much work I could actually do in a 24-hour period when you only take your kids to school and pick them up. And then after they go to bed, I go back to work. I didn't realize I had it in me to push so hard for all these dreams, to write, to make the films, to do it. And I think a lot of people think when they have kids, their life is kind of over. Or, your dreams need to be established. I know I thought I had to have everything in line and my dreams established before I started having children. And it was kind of the opposite. My kids kind of push me and inspire me to go a little further.
I think that's so amazing. And I think you're not alone. I think a lot of people obviously have realized that too. It's like we kind of inevitably think that, well, all this has to be in place for these other things to kind of, but it's not always true. Rarely, right?
And they are more of a reason, like when I look at them and it's like to say, hey, mommy's writing this book or mommy's making this film, they pick up on it and they see it. And, I'm raising two girls. I want them to see me working hard and knowing that they can too. So when you say you're gonna write a book, you're gonna finish the book because you want your girls to see that, and that your hard work pays off.
Right.
So, and I don't know if I'll be able to sell the book, but I wrote the book and I finished it, and there's that,
That's right.
So.
That's right. You do it and then you kind of just surrender it. Like a lot of things in the creative business. Christina, it's so great to connect with you, and thank you. Thank you for being an inspiration to so many who are in the creative arts and in filmmaking. And folks, look at the bottom of your screen or catch the end notes here and find out where you can learn more about Christina and her work and Rosemary, the Rosemary documentary at rosemarymovie.com. Thank you so much for being here. You have a really great November.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. Until next time, folks, take care and onward we go.
she developed a well-rounded character that everybody loved, Sally.
That show was surrounded with guys.
And we made jokes about the fact that nobody took into account the fact that she was a lady.
Here was this woman fighting for her position in the show and in real life.
They didn't move like their age.
And they're sold out.
They were rock stars.
And what was going on backstage? Chaos. Any performer as good as their last show.
She's never stopped working, ever. In her case, it's a drug. It's something that she has to do.
You can't be in the business all your life without being tough.
And she's the only one left.
Rosemarie.
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 Rosemary.
Can I tell you this story? Are you rolling? God love you. God love you.